Hi, welcome everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. Tonight, LD decided to not be here, so the ladies could have a nice chat. And being Valentine's Day, why not? We don't need a guy. I'm joking. I'm joking. Don't let everybody get angry at me. Um, it's about love of everything, whether it's love of angelics, love of divine, love towards another person, love in romantic way, or just love of loving humanity and everything that's alive. So with that being said, we have a very well-known author, um, a person who not only writes about love, but also now has been writing about angels and how they're here to help us and how we can work with them. And experiences that many of us really resonate with. So, with that being said, welcome, Catherine. How are
Thank
you?
you. Thank you, Glenda. Happy Valentine's Day.
Same.
Thank you.
I
Thank
love the
you.
two hearts in the back. They're
Isn't that
beautiful.
great?
Yes. So, for those who may not know you, I doubt who doesn't, but those that may not know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. I'm an author. I've published over 45 books, and frankly, I just finished my 57th. And I've got quite a few screenplays as well. I did the novelizations of Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile. I have a Hallmark movie that is still being shown. It's called The Sweetest Heart. And if anybody wants to know, it's the cupcake one, because everybody goes, oh, it's the cupcake movie. I love that movie. They had great cupcakes, I was on the set for it, by the way, and we never got to eat any of the cupcakes.
Oh.
And there were those really fancy ones, where they really put a lot into the icing and the decorations and stuff. They were just gorgeous. But anyway, those were props, not, I couldn't have it. And but anyway, I have been traditionally, as I said, traditionally published, but I've just started self-publishing. My last book is Magical Midnight, which of course you've read, and it is different. And all my books have been, my novels have all been a romance novels. That I've had historical novels, thriller, suspense romance, mystery romance, all that kind of thing. But I've always, even as a small child, I've always believed that love conquers all. And that's been my own mantra for whatever is the situation. Even when I'm in an argument with somebody, I've just always, well, love will conquer all. So I'll, we'll defer to that and let that, because love is the highest frequency of any kind, and anything there is. God is love, a source is love, whatever you want to, our divine spark within us is love.
Right.
And Valentine's Day is really a great day for us to really remember what it is about us humans that makes us a little bit different than all the other species, of which there are very many. And just even on this planet, humans have a tremendous ability to love even beyond our own knowing. I believe that it is love that is the impetus for bravery and courage. I believe that you have, in order to have that thing that gives you that passion, there has to be that love for it, that feeling for it. Sidney Lumet said, he was a great director back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, etc., and director and writer. And he said, there's only 37 plots, but every one of them is a love story. A man and his dog, a man in his country, a woman and a man in his boat. I mean, even in Romancing the Stone, it was a man in his boat, if you really get down to it. Before Joan came along, it was the Angelina boat.
Right.
So, there is something to that, until you want to expand and share, that love can, and that's when we really start to see how divine our love can be as we spread it out a little bit. We add more people into our circle, our friends, you know, and our animals, our dogs, our cats, our, you know, salamanders, wherever we go with that, you know, that kind of thing. So it was an, you know, my segue into angels, I think, is probably the biggest, I don't want to say nudge, because it was a whole lot more than a nudge. Can I tell that story about
Yes.
Okay. My in 1987, this is when my writing has changed. I had published about 8 or 9 books at that time. So I already had a publishing house, and I was, you know, in the game, as they say.
Mhm.
And so both my parents were at the Grand Canyon in May of 1987 and looking at the Grand Canyon, and they both had heart attacks. And my mother had a heart attack first. So, you know, there's a timeline thing here. So my mother had a heart attack, and they, you know, wherever it was that they were able to get a hold of the ambulance, and the ambulance came and then took her to the hospital in Flagstaff, because that was the closest hospital that she could go to, was there in Flag. So my dad drove the car behind the ambulance, and then he was following them in. She was on this, you know, gurney, and they took her into the ICU. And as she was being wheeled into ICU, he dropped dead outside the doors of ICU. Mm-hmm. And he was dead for 22 minutes. And they did everything they could. I mean, my mother said they paddled him 3 times. Now, she was actually in the other room, but she was told they had to use paddle 3 times, you know, to defibrillator 3 times to get him. Didn't work. They, you know, did CPR, beat on his chest, broke all of his ribs, broke his sternum, broke his collarbone, you know, whatever else they could break, they were at it, you know, but they brought him back.
Yeah.
So he was in the hospital, and then they determined that my mother didn't actually have a heart attack. Hers was altitude, the altitude. So she had like a TIA or something, you know, but it wasn't a real, she didn't have to stay in the ICU. So anyway, we got a call. My sister was in Chicago. Mm-hmm. He lived here in Indiana, and I was in Houston. So she said, I will get a plane in Chicago. You get a plane there, you know, in Houston, and we'll meet in Phoenix. And then from Phoenix, at that time, we got a little puddle jumper, you know, it was one of those, literally like a little Cub plane, you know, because it was so late at night and we were desperate. So we chartered this little plane to get us up to Flagstaff, because there wasn't anything running. And like as back then, you still had those kind of pilots that were a little on the cocky side, you know, which I love, you know, the Harrison Ford thing, you know, in the movies, right, or Indiana Jones or something. And so this guy said, oh, you know, not a problem, I can get you there. And I said, there's a storm, you know, there's lightning and thunder. And he goes, oh, we'll fly around it, you know. And I was like, okay, you know, because commercial flights didn't take off in a thunderstorm, right?
Right.
But we flew through this thing, and I mean, it was, and my sister the whole time is like, we're gonna die. I know this is it, you know, it's gonna be this big family funeral with all, you know, 4 caskets, you know, that kind of thing. And anyway, we got to Flagstaff, and it was well after midnight when we got there. Mm-hmm. And when we did, we walked into the room where my dad was, into the ICU. And so anyway, we got into ICU. I'm sorry about that. And my dad said, oh, Kath, I'm so glad that you're here. There's something that I've got to tell you. And I said, well, what do you have to tell me? And he said, well, the first thing I have to tell you is I have to tell you that I love you. And I said, really? Because the whole time I was growing up, and I was like around 40 years old at the time that this happened, 39, 40, 41, something like that. And the whole time that we were growing up, you know, he never said, I love you, you know, just flat out, you know, without
Right.
prompting. I always had to say, you know, Daddy, I love you. And then he'd say, oh, I do too. Or yeah, me too. Something like that, you know, but it
Right.
was just that, you know, a lot of it was that generation, I believe, but it just wasn't done very much, you know, that kind of thing. So anyway, he said, you know, I have to tell you that I love you. And I said, well, I love you too. And he said, well, and he said, I'm going to say it more often. I'm going to say it more often. It's important. And I said, okay. I said, and why is that important? He said, well, that's what I have to tell you about. I have to tell you about what happened when I went to the other side. Now, we were very Catholic. He was very, very Catholic. And he, you know, Catholics refer to heaven as heaven, you know,
Right.
Protestants are paradise. Yeah.
Right.
But I know for a fact he never heard the words the other side. There's no way he would heard that. I had heard it, but he, you know, and I said, what do you mean the other side? How do you know about the other side? And he said, well, that's actually what they call it. They don't call it heaven. It's you're not really quite there yet. You know, when you first go over. Right. And I said, and you were just first going over. He said, yeah, that's what happened. And he said, and I have to tell you what the being of light said to me. And I said, you mean an angel? And he said, no, not an angel. Angels are the other guys. And I said, so there's a distinction? And he said, oh yes, the being of light is entirely different. That's who meets you when you first come over, is the being of light. And he said, and I said, well, did you see any angels? And he said, oh yeah, I saw him. I said, I heard him. He said, he said, you know, there's a lot of humming going on over there. It's a lot of that humming. And I said, and he said, you know, I don't like that humming thing. And I said, well, did you like their humming? And he goes, you know, as a matter of fact, that their humming was pretty good. Yep. Yeah. I went, well, I'm sure I'll tell them in my prayers. You know, next time I see an angel, I'll tell them my dad likes your humming. Right? He's such a humming expert, you know. So anyway, he says, I have to tell you what they said, what they said to me. And I said, well, tell me what they said. And he said, well, first of all, they told me that they were sending me back. And I said, why? And he said, well, because I had not learned the only lesson that a human being goes to the earth to learn. And that's the lesson of love. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, I have some work I have to do. And I said, okay. And he said, and then they told me what about you. And I said, who did? And he said, well, the being of light told me what about you, that what I have to tell you about your life. And I said, no, wait a minute. This is your near-death experience, and your near-death experience is about me. And he said, yeah, it was. And I was like, okay, this is really far out. And he said, they want you to take my story and other people like me, you know, that have these kinds of stories, and you're supposed to put them all together, chronicle them, even stories like, you know, that your mother had and your grandmother and you. And because when I was a little girl, I saw an angel in my bedroom when I was about 3 years old. And often, not just once or twice, but I mean, often, and not to mention fairies and, you know, some unicorns before unicorns were popular.
Right.
We had unicorn pajamas, you know, that was long before any of that, right? And I mean, not to date myself, but hey, you know,
that's true.
But it's true. It didn't come along until 30 years later, you know?
Right.
So anyway, he said, and then he said, you're not supposed to change their stories. You said you interview them, write them down, chronicle them, and put them together, and then put them together in these books. And he said, and then when you die, you'll be judged on those books.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. I went, oh, no pressure there.
Not at all.
Yeah, I thought, what about all the other stuff I did? He goes, well, pretty much they're kind of, you know, zero focused on the angel books. So anyway, when he came, we did get him out of the hospital. He was there for a little over a month. There wasn't much of his heart had just really turned to mush. So there wasn't much going on, but we did get him home, and he changed a lot after that. And I still lived in Houston, so I wasn't here in Indiana. And when I would call, when I used to call, he would say, "Oh, let me go get your mother," and and then I talked to my mom, but my dad wouldn't talk to me on the phone. And then that really changed after that near-death experience. He would say, "Well, I want to tell you what happened today," and I went for a walk, or I went out on the golf course, and I didn't really play golf, but I putted, it's things like that. And then I just wanted to tell you that I loved you. And I love you. I just want to make sure you're okay. So all of that changed a lot. And that's why I think it's so important. If it had that much impact on him, we all need to remember to, not just say, "I love you" to the people that are around. I mean, that's really important, but also just to be kind to people you don't even know. If we would just all be kind to each other,
Very true. Very true. You change
Yeah.
a person's complete life.
Absolutely. It certainly changes their day. And it was like, we were walking around the lake the other day, and we ran into a gentleman who just moved here from Chicago. And he said, "Everybody here is so nice. They say hello and talk to you and everything." And I went, "How about that? That's really true."
It's a major difference.
Yeah, it is.
You're used to a place where it's hurry, 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 and nobody even feels like they have time to look at you.
True. Very true.
But they feel like they don't have, but they feel like they don't have time, but they can have 2 seconds to say good morning and continue walking.
Yeah,
they don't have to be a full long conversation.
Exactly.
But that's unfortunate what humanity has turned into.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
So your father changed, which normally with a near-death experience, there is some major change. So I'm glad that
usually
he did a major one though.
Yeah, his was a complete turnaround. Really complete.
Which is good.
Yeah.
It's really good because I'm sure if it helped your relationship with him, it helped get closer and seeing him a different light now.
Oh, absolutely. And then, so I want to tell you my Valentine's story.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. So my Valentine's story. So then about a year or so, maybe, it's not too much longer after he died, maybe a couple of years after he died, at Christmas time, I was putting up my Christmas tree, and I had this diamond ring that had, it was popular back then. It was like a spiral up like this that had little teeny stones all the way up, and then it had a big stone, on the top. Right. And so when I was putting up the Christmas tree, it was a live tree, so I bumped it somehow, and that big stone, the bigger stones, wasn't big, but but it was almost a carat. And it fell out. And I mean, we went through the tree and trying to find that thing, both when we put it up and took it down, never found it, couldn't find it. So a couple weeks later, I had a very large closet at that time. I was in Houston. We had just built this house in Houston, and I had a very large closet. And in the closet was a cupboard that had a large changing board. Where you pack your luggage packing board. But on there, on some shelves, I had perfume bottles, and then there were a couple that I had down on the surface of the countertop. And I had a box that had a perfume bottle that was shaped like a bracelet, like this, and that the apex of it was a blue stone, just right there at the blue stone, but you could really see that blue stone. Well, anyway, I went into the closet and I was putting some things away, and I looked at that, and I would always look at that bottle because I bought it in Paris and I just loved it. And at the apex of that blue stone, that dark blue stone, was this glittering loose diamond, white diamond. And I'm like, wow, and all I thought was my diamond came back, and so.
Mhm.
And so the girl who was helping me clean the house, I went to her and I said, Maria, I said, did you find that stone? She said, no, I didn't touch anything. I didn't do anything. She said, I vacuumed the closet. That's it. I don't touch anything. She thought I was accusing her of something, And I said, well, where did this come from? She said, I don't know. I didn't see it. So I thought, well, how it couldn't have fallen off of one of the shelves because I wasn't up there or anything.
Right.
So anyway, Valentine's Day was coming, and there was a friend of mine who had a talk show, and I did an interview for Valentine's, and so at the end of the show, he said, if you could have anything for Valentine's Day this year, what would you like to have? And I said, I'd like to have a sign from my father that he's still alive, and that he's still around me, and that he loves me. That's what I'd like. I would like a sign from my father.
Right.
So anyway, I got the stone, and my fiance at the time said, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And I said, well, I'd like to have a heart, a diamond heart. I
Right.
love the hearts and stuff. And he said, well, let's take that diamond that, we found obviously we found your diamond. So let's take that diamond and we'll send it up to Simon in Dallas, and we'll get a little necklace made out of it.
Mhm.
I said, okay, that sounds great. So Simon called and said, well, you need to send me the papers for the stone. Do you still have them? I said, oh yeah, I've got them. He said, great. So I faxed those up to him. And then Simon calls me, the next day, and he said, okay, I don't understand what's going on here. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I got all the papers, all the paperwork for the diamond.
Mhm.
And he said, but the diamond that I'm holding in my hand, the diamond that's on the papers was 3/4 of a carat, and it was flawless. And the diamond that I'm holding is almost a carat and a quarter, and it has a flaw. They're two entirely different stones.
Wow.
And I said, so he said, did you want this stone back? And I said, I don't have stones floating around my house. I have one diamond. And I lost it in the Christmas tree. And he said, well, I don't know what to tell you. He said, except that dollar-wise to do the exchange, etc., and then do the work. He said, it's just about the same. So whatever, you want to do. So I said, oh, go ahead and, I want to go ahead and get the necklace of the diamonds. So this is the necklace. This is about 26 years old. That's how long ago it was. And so when I got it on Valentine's Day, my fiance, he said, this is so that you always remember that you got your sign from your father, because that diamond came from out of the next dimension. And it was definitely not from, the earth. And he said, there's your sign from your father that he is here and he loves you. And he said, next time have him send bigger diamonds. Why not? Right?
Yeah, why not? A few more, Dad. A few more.
Yeah, exactly. But that's my Valentine, and Valentine's was always his favorite holiday, because he said it's the only holiday that we have that's just for love. Think about it. It's not about kids getting candy or Santa Claus coming or going trick-or-treating or the Easter Bunny. It's just about telling someone that you love them. Yeah. So isn't that interesting?
It is.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
So,
what a wonderful experience. And definitely confirmation your father was around you. So.
Absolutely. Definitely.
And it's nice when we know that our loved ones are around us. Because we miss their physical being, of course. Yeah. But knowing that they're still with us, and knowing that at some point we will unite with them, whether, however we get there. That it's comforting. At least it is to me.
Oh, it is to me. And I know it is to many, many people. And I think for a lot of people, they would find even more comfort if they had that connection, or could figure out how to find that connection. Right. And that's one of the reasons why I think my angel stories are so good, because it tells, and the work that you do is that if you're not, the angels and your deceased loved ones, they're all around you. You're just not seeing it. It's not them, it's you.
Yeah.
You know, there's all kinds of whispers and glances and shadows out of the corner of your eye. Yes, that's really your mom, your dad, your husband, wife, son, daughter. They're really there. I had an experience that was in Houston. I did counseling for bereaved parents who had lost a child or a baby. And when we were going around the room, this one was in a church. I had never been to this church before. And as we were going around the room, every single deceased child came to that parent and talked to me. They were almost not in the flesh, but I mean, enough that I saw their clothes and I was able to describe the child with their clothes, what they had and the message that they wanted to tell their parents, which interestingly was more than just I'm happy, I'm okay, stop worrying about me. It was one of them was a girl who had lived in Italy and she was a painter, and she was telling her parents that she wanted them to go to Italy and get these paintings that she had left with a friend, and that the friend was not doing the right thing by her paintings, and she wanted her paintings back because her parents could put them in a gallery in the United States. And they did. They went to Italy and got the paintings. And so it was interesting. It was really interesting for me. But there was one lady who came and she had a family there. She had like 4 children, and one boy died when he was about 8 or 9 years old. Okay. And the family had they had a 2-story house, and it was Easter time, and all the kids and mom and dad were out in the front of the yard, right by the front door, and they had their Easter baskets and all that kind of stuff and everything. And they had the neighbor came and took a picture of the family because all the flowers were blooming and all that kind of stuff. In the window right above them was the dead child. Now that's confirmation.
That is definitely.
And I mean, I saw that photo, and I mean, he was in the flesh. There was no transparent anything. So they are there. And when you get the feeling that they're talking to you, you're not going to hear their voice outside your head. You're going to hear it in your head.
Right.
So when you hear that, they're like them trying to get through or sending you a message or saying something to you, answer them back. Start talking to them, drum up a conversation of your own. I mean, I say good morning to everybody every morning, you know. And on Friday, I have this whole set of these beautiful cut glass rose bowls, and I have a little different colored vigil candles in each bowl. Well, right now, obviously, they're all red.
Right.
Valentine's Day, right?
Right.
And so every Friday night, I light a little tea light in each one for all my dead people. They're for all my dead people. And, you know, a while ago, 15 or 20 was fine. But now that we're getting to like 36 or 37, oh my God. I mean, we got a forest fire going on around here.
Yeah, I can understand that. What I do is just put my parents, my grandparents, and then one as a collective, because my father's the last one of 18 siblings. So in order to take care of all my ancestors and my loved ones, I keep saying there's just too many out there. On the other side. We're just, taking care of this. And his father, my grandfather, died when he was 5 years old. So that's how old his parents were. So so there's a lot. So I just say, okay, this is a memory of all of them, because I
think I'm gonna have to get. I'm getting there. We have a community candle.
Yeah, it's a community candle. I'll make one, like I said, I have a special one for my parents and special one for my grandparents, but after that, it's like, sorry guys. Just pick up that energy from there. I send you love, but
Yeah.
You know, and especially since now I have a granddaughter who's a year and a half. She's into everything, so I have to make sure that
You have to, yeah, you got to be careful.
right, right. So it's a
Mhm.
whole other ball game. You
Yes,
have
it
to
is.
adjust.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
so true. Yeah.
So you gathered the stories, wrote them, and now was there any time while you were writing them that you said to yourself, "Oh, what am I doing this for?" Or were you like determined? Like, you know, sometimes being human, we have doubts. And I was
Mhm.
wondering if you had that moment, did you hear your father's voice again?
Um, I have not had that moment. I've just been determined to get the stories, and usually after I have like your show or something, people will write to me and tell me their story, you know, or if I'm on the radio, like a lot of times those late night radio shows, the people will call in, they'll tell me a story, and I'll get their email and they'll send me, you know, their
Oh,
story. But I have heard my father's voice two times in this house, and one time was my mother was still alive and she was in an assisted living at the time, and it was she wasn't doing well, and it was either Mother's Day or her birthday, and I had baked a cake and I got balloons and just things that I knew she, you know, flowers and things that I knew that
right.
she would really more nail polish, stuff like that. And I literally was putting things down in the dining room near the door to go out, getting ready to pack the car to take over to her. And I heard my father say, "I like what you're doing for your mother." And I mean, I was brought to my knees because it was a voice that was outside myself. It was, I mean, it was loud and clear. And I thought, first of all, it takes a tremendous amount of energy for them to come through,
Yes.
even as the voice. And I've had a couple of instances. One was my grandmother when I was 13. My grandmother came to me in the flesh right after she died. And I can't even imagine how much energy that took. Although I have heard that within 2 weeks of death, that I had a Jewish rabbi tell me that the many times the dead will go around, and that's the time that they make their amends, which I hadn't. I know that there's some religions that say that, you know, and
Right.
some, yeah, that they're going around. And when my another friend died, he had gone to another person I know, and she said he appeared in the flesh, and she said he said, I wanted to just come and tell you I'm sorry. And she said, and I said, what is he talking about? And she said he was making his amends. And I thought, well, that's only the second time I'd heard that phrase. But then you don't hear anything for a decade or 2 decades because it's a lot. It's a lot for them to do that. So, and then there was only one other time. It was when my sister died that I heard my dad's voice. She'll be fine. Yeah, she'll be fine.
Well, the I've heard that they have 7 to 10 days.
Yeah,
And
well,
they're allowed, you know, that's why they want see their own funeral, their own wake. You know, sometimes when you go to a funeral home or a wake and you feel like their presence there, or
yes,
you say, oh my God, it's almost like they're here
yeah,
because they are there.
because they are there.
They are there. They get a chance to see who's there, who paid respects, who showed up. And that, you know, sometimes when I go to wakes, it's very hard for me because I see and hear and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm like, nope, I'm not here for anybody. I'm just here to pay respects and leave. Usually I sit all the way in the back because I'm getting so why is he there? He didn't even talk to me for 3 years. And I'm like, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Just let the human make believe. Just let it go. He's alive. He's still got to deal with it.
Yeah, right.
And so sometimes it's a little hard, but loved ones, when they come back after that mourning period, I would
Yeah.
say, and they go and they debrief and they come back to give messages,
Right.
they have the power of the divine behind them. So
They
you
do.
feel that energy of love. Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, grandpa, okay, here he is, or whatever. And you
Yeah.
feel it. You can
Yeah, you
feel
do.
it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
you do. You do.
it's because they use that love, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
divine love. So,
Absolutely.
and now you're continuing to write the books. And
Yes.
so anybody who has stories, they could contact you, and we'll have the
Absolutely. Yeah.
email,
Yeah,
right?
through my website or my
Right.
email, they can send their story. I'm in the process of proofreading a new one. It's called Angel Timelines.
Mhm.
It's got some pre-COVID, COVID, and a little post-COVID, because we're in a different world than we
Yes.
were prior. And I have one story that goes back maybe almost 40 years. And at the time, I was told numerous times what the future was going to be, which is this world that we're in right now, where everything is a lie. We're finding out all kinds of hidden truths and hidden secrets.
Upside down.
Upside down is a good word for it. Upside down. And I was terrified at the time. I mean, I thought humanity can't get that. It just can't get that bad. It just can't. And I literally quit. At that time, I would get up in the morning and I would go work out. I went to a workout class, and then I would come back, take my shower, and then I'd meditate before I would write all day.
Right.
And then when I meditate, I would go to the computer, and I would channel in. You didn't call it channeling back then. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it because, I mean, they would probably burn my house down and with me,
Right.
And
still to this day, you find some areas.
Yeah, a little bit. And there was it was automatic writing with the computer is the only way I could say, explain what it was. And there was they called themselves the group. They said they were the group. They said they were divine. They were angelic. They were not, it was nothing from the dark. They always were spreading love. And I always asked, I would say, are you from the light? Because there's a lot of, especially now, there's a lot of tricksters and imposters and evil demons around and stuff. So you have to say, are you from the light? And if they're from the light, they will say yes. Yeah. If they're not from the light, they won't answer.
Or give you a whole different other story, like turn it around.
Yes. They'll try. But if they do not answer yes, go away. Tell them to go away and never come back in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And it works. It works every time. But anyway, they were from the light, but they were showing me. At one point, Michael the Archangel came in and said, this is the truth. We can see all time, and we can see the future. And if humanity doesn't change, this is what it's going to be. And it was pretty apocalyptic. So what we can do now to change that timeline is all that love that we do feel as humans, is to send it all around the world, especially send it to your enemies. I mean, if anybody's out there that needs some, is your enemy. Yeah. I mean, they're really in the wrong place. Right. They need a lot of it. Like you're gonna get a triple dose. It's like a triple ice cream cone full of love, and for all the war-torn areas, we send light and love in just massive amounts of light and love for that to end, and to bring those vibrations up and bring the whole evolution. That brings the evolution of all mankind up, so that we can be raised and we can ascend.
And this is right now the time to do it. I mean,
it is. It's right now. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be the next. If you don't start doing it today, then you don't want to do that. No, you just don't want to do that. You want to send the love and you want to send the light.
Yeah, because it could be something like we'll end up like Mars, empty. So,
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want that.
no.
We have the most beautiful Eden to live in. I mean, the
Yes.
trees and the flowers, our natural beauty on this planet is, I just can't imagine anything any prettier. You know, it's just so beautiful here. And to have the chance to be out in nature, you know, and just even for 5 minutes a day, you know, go to the mailbox and just look around at the sun and or the clouds and the rain. It's all great. You know?
Right. Exactly.
It's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
So, now, do you have anything else that you, besides the one that you're editing, that you're seeing yourself doing? So,
You mean in the future?
yes.
Yes. I want to do another angel book. That's really a collection of stories that people had something, probably COVID, you know, COVID, post-COVID, how things have changed. You know, a lot of people went through, there was a lot of loss, a lot of sorrow. How did they have angels come in and help them through? You know, I had 2 cousins who died, and I couldn't even go to their funeral. Because we weren't allowed, you know, and I'm just like, who's making my, of course, this is me. Who's making these rules? I got to go talk to that guy, because that's not a good rule. It's like those rules in Catholic school. Yeah. Who made up those rules?
Oh, yes. And we all pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, I was doing a lot of doing COVID funerals, which were basically everybody masked up, and it was just the family, the immediate family was allowed.
Oh, wow.
And
yeah, that
was it. And that was hard.
Yeah, that is hard.
Because not only were they losing the person, but they didn't have supports.
There was no support system for them. Yeah,
right.
It was tough. Yeah,
right. So
it was very tough.
So yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I think that rule should have been a little bit stretched a little bit.
Yeah, agreed.
You know?
But I think there are a lot of stories out there of because the one thing I know is during that time the angels were really around. They were really around if people were looking, but we were so, as a group, as a collective, we were so full of fear and unknowing. That's how I felt. Right. Because I was always like, who's making these rules? I don't understand who these people. I never even heard of the Who before, you know. I thought it was a group, one of my favorite rock groups, you know, the Who. I mean, what? They're making the rules? I don't think so. And then, you know, I was just like, I don't get these people, and making up all kinds of things that are just out of freaking nowhere. I mean,
well, you know, at that point they needed to keep everybody in. They thought.
They thought. Yeah.
And they found a way to
do it. Yeah.
You know, so because we were getting too united.
Yeah.
Because if you recall, right before COVID hit, we were really starting to unite and started to ascend and started to awaken.
Yes, we were. Yeah.
And
that's what they got. That's why they were afraid.
Right.
Yeah. So we were starting to do what we were supposed to do. Now we're going to do it and screw them.
Well, let's face it. If it's work that's got to get done, nobody's really going to stop it. They may delay it, but it's not going to be stopped.
But it's not going to stop it. No. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
That's, you know, and especially if it's work in the light.
Yes.
It's not going to stop.
That's correct. That's correct.
So out of all this, you know, you bring in the angels and the love and all that. And have you found any one story more captivating to you, or more or resonating more? Because you know you do so many stories.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I could only imagine that some may really hit home because they're so similar to what you may have experienced, or made you bring tears to your eyes, right?
Yeah. Probably I have two that I think, and both of them are vanishing angel stories. And both of them were told to me 20 years ago, and they still resonate all the time with me. As you know, you just never know who you're going to meet, you know, and it could be an angel and you don't know. And one of them was this lady had a man come to her house. Now, you know, like I always say is, you know, during the Depression, when my grandmother, you know, in the 1930s, you know, hobos would come to her house and she'd give them, you know, they'd say, can I have a can of beans, or can I have a piece of that pie or something? So that was this, but this is in the late 80s where people had money and stuff. And it was Houston. We were rolling and rocking and all that kind of stuff. And this man comes to this woman's house, and she was kind of an oddball, very flamboyant. I mean, she had a jeweled cowboy hat and jeweled boots on all the time, you know, one of those. It was always, she was hilarious. But this man came to her house and asked her if he could have some food. He was hungry. And she said she didn't know. She lived alone. She didn't know what had gotten in it. She just said, yeah, come on in. I'm making some cowboy stew, you know, which was beans and meat, and, you know, and she had all this, you know, cowboy barbecue stuff and everything. She gave him a full meal. And she said he must have had at least a gallon of sweet tea. She said, I know everybody loves my sweet tea, but that man just drank all that sweet tea. Well, anyway, he got up and said, thank you very much. And didn't say another word. He said, just thank you very much. She said they chatted a little bit, but not a whole lot. He went to the door and he turned around and looked at her. And she said all of a sudden his eyes were this blazing blue, and looked right at her, and he said, for I was naked and you clothed me. I was hungry and you gave me food to eat. And it took one step down the steps of her and vanished right in front of her eyes. Now that story just, I mean, I tell it now and I get goosebumps.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah. And then another one is Donna Vall's story. She's really fantastic. She's an artist, and she has a website, Angels to Guide You. And she was an artist, and she was doing portraits, but whenever she would do the portraits, they weren't turning out like the person, you know, and she couldn't figure out what she was doing wrong, that people would come and pick up. They were beautiful. And she couldn't figure out what was going on. So one day in her little shop, it was an angel shop that she sold all kinds of, you know, religious relic things and all that, you know, statues and stuff. Well, anyway, this beautiful guy, she said, you know, it almost looked like a young Cary Grant, you know, he was so good looking, you know, really, really, really good looking. And came in, and he started asking, you know, going around the store, and he looked at a few things, and he started asking. He said, she said, is there anything you're interested in? He said, those portraits that you've got lined up behind the counter, what are those? And she said, well, those are mine. And I'm not really sure what I want to do with them. And she had a friend who wanted to take her to some meetings or something that she wasn't sure about, because they were all about extraterrestrials. And she said she wasn't really into that. That kind of scared her. She didn't want to know anything about it. And so anyway, he turns to her and he says, without her saying anything, he turns to her and he says, and so you're frightened of extraterrestrials? And she said, she was like, well, how do you know that? And he said, well, you know, these paintings these portraits that you're doing, they're not really human. And she said, they're not. And he said, no, those are all the guardian angels of the people that you're doing their portraits for. And he said, and what are angels if they're not extraterrestrials? They're not part of the earth. So they had a few more little conversations and everything. And he turns around, walks to the door, vanishes. I love that story. And
Ooh,
she was about ready to give up all of her art, you know,
right.
just do something else. She changed everything, and she's just allowed herself to really go into what that guardian angel was trying to portray, rather than trying to write the person's portrait. And then on the bottom of the painting would come in deceased relatives, cats, dogs, and she would have Hebrew letters that would come in that would actually say different things, but she doesn't know Hebrew, she doesn't know,
Right.
but they were all in gold, and she had them gold. She did mine, and my guardian angel was blonde with lavender eyes.
Ooh.
I know, I was like, oh, how cool. I was like, yeah, I still got it, you know, it's just real, it's beautiful.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So we're coming close to the end of the show. I can't believe it's gone so fast. Is there anything that you haven't uh, let us know or tell us and you want to share with us before we go?
Besides my website, which is www.officialcatherinelanigan.com, but you can also go to www.catherinelanigan.com and it'll get you there, because I have a new website. My new book is Magical Midnight. That's got holographic letters, and this is the first edition, which Glenda has, of course.
Yes, I do.
But it's only
Wonderful.
available, that edition is only available through my website. So if you want a signed autographed one, you can order from I've got PayPal, so it's all set up, you know, on the website. But the big thing that I want to say to everybody is to always remember to tell the people that you love that you do love them. Don't hesitate. Even if you start to get it out and it doesn't come out, just start it, you know. Next time it'll come all the way out. And when you have a relative that is the meanest and nastiest one, they're the one that needs you to hug them. Besides saying that you love them, they need it more than anybody. And that's hard for us to realize, because the first thing you want to do is run from them. But you know, you're like, I don't want to even go there. But that's the one that needs the hug the most, is that they're so empty, and they need that love to fill them up. And those tears of joy that you feel will be straight from God.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And on that, we're going to end this. I want to say thank you to our audience. Thank you, Catherine, for coming back on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
It's always fun to be here, Glenda. I love your show.
I love you.
I love you. Yeah.
With that being said, as always, we're sending many blessings. And as always, love you.
Love you.